Hello,
Got
how
some
are you?
coffee there?
We are live.
All right, live.
Um, so I know very little about you, to be honest. Do you want to
Yeah.
start just by telling me who the hell is Josh? What's your last name again?
Seidel. A lot
Seidel.
of people say
Josh
Seidel, but
Seidel.
it's Seidel. So
Jewish
I
alt
am
right.
a 30-something dude living in Cincinnati. I
Since
as a job, I help companies find qualified employees to fill their open positions. I'm a
temp
headhunter.
temping,
And
you're a temp
politically,
broker.
what's that?
You're a temp broker.
I don't just do temporary; I also do permanent employment. So
Okay.
I really kind of do whatever the company wants.
Yep.
But politically, I'm right wing. I've come to that, through a long sort of process, and I've been a lot of different things in my life. I'm sort of the classic. I call myself sort of the classic wandering Jew.
Mhm.
In that I have wandered through a number of ideologies. I mean, I kind of went on, I think, a pretty typical trajectory of, left when I was younger, and then maturing into sort of more conservative, and then finding that sort of the neoconservative or mainstream conservative was not working,
Yep.
particularly under George W. Bush, and that led me to the sort of the neo reaction,
Mhm.
and then to what's sort of been called alt right, and now whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think with Trump's victory, I really don't call myself alt anything. I think
Yes.
my ideas are fairly mainstream, and I'm a mainstream right winger. I would call myself a mainstream right wing supporter of the president elect. I guess if I had to label myself in
Gotcha.
some.
Would you call yourself a paleo conservative or?
In some ways, yes.
Yeah.
I am definitely, I'm a very strong supporter of the state of Israel.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
But at the same time, I absolutely believe in Donald Trump's,
Yes.
America First policies and phrase.
America first.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and to me that has meaning. I mean, it
Yeah.
can't just be words. It actually has to mean something. In
Yes.
terms of American aid to Israel, I mean, I'm not very particularly supportive of that. Certainly not the 34 billion,
I mean,
over and
there's
above special. I'm
they
not
they
supportive
give
of
they give aid to Egypt too. You
yeah,
know.
no, absolutely no, and I'm not as a point. It's definitely not something I target towards
Mhm.
Israel. I mean, I'm against foreign aid in general. Um,
Yep.
I'm
Gotcha.
against foreign interventions in general.
Mhm.
I guess in a foreign policy sense, I'm certainly more paleo. Now, when it comes to economics,
Yep.
I jump a little bit off board. The nice thing about paleo conservatives is they're not kind of business uber alles types like sort of the neocons and sort of more modern conservatives are. I mean, they tend to have more of a, they can believe in things like tariffs. They can believe in things like targeted, things like the carrier deal that Trump did. I mean, I don't think paleo conservatives are as offended by that as, neocons and modern conservatives. So in that, and I'm not either. So in that way, I
Mhm.
suppose I am paleo. But I don't label myself as that because I don't think I'm as strongly social conservative as some of
Yeah.
them are. And I'm definitely, I think, a bit more focused on issues of race now. I know they are too, to some extent,
But
but
say
I don't
sorry.
think.
Sorry. Can you slow down? So you said you're more focused on race now, like like who?
Well, I would say that more focused on race than paleoconservatives, or differently focused on race than paleoconservatives, means
Differently
that you're
focused. Okay.
responding directly to left-wing attacks on whiteness and white people. And paleoconservatives really haven't done that as much. If you look at
Yes.
guys like, if you look at guys like, I mean, there's a Milo or some of those kind of people that are really, getting out there and answering the left, not just to,
Mhm.
to respond to their, say, oh, it's bad to be racist against white people, but to actually reaffirm the value of whiteness and
Yes.
of white people in European culture.
Mhm.
And, again, paleoconservatives will do that, but I don't think it's sort of a tactical difference between me and them, and that I'm more focused on that and more focused on directly answering the left.
Okay. I say paleoconservative just because that's the way I've always labeled, for example, Jared Taylor of American Renaissance
Yeah, and
as sort
I
of,
view it.
backstepping towards racial issues away from the neocon admission of racial sameness. Um,
Right.
so I was wondering if maybe that was sort of your angle because I know that many. I guess you're sort of a self-identifying like Jewish conservative, perhaps race realist. And I know many
Yeah.
Jewish people have embraced Jared Taylor, in part
Yes.
because he's fairly moderate, but in a paleoconservative sort of way, and
Right.
he's very, at least in theory, inclusive of Jewish people.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think my views on race are very close to Taylor's.
Yeah,
I live in a very diverse area. I actually live a
famously.
diverse, quote unquote, lifestyle.
Yes.
And I think the reason why I understand that most people can't live this kind of lifestyle is precisely because I do live it, and most people are nothing like me.
Yes,
Um,
well said, well said. I totally feel you there. Yeah.
yeah, I got the feeling just looking at where you're living, I got the feeling you might be with me on that. But that's the thing. It's
I
like when
like
you're,
it personally, but many
yeah,
other
so do I.
people, don't.
So do I. No, but I understand that, for example, like the upper managerial class is never going to be living, they're never going to go home and raise their children in the kind of neighborhood that I'm living in. And
Yeah.
rightfully so. I don't want them to. I want them to be off in their nice, safe, completely white neighborhood where they're doing their white thing because
And
that's what builds a strong, stable society, and
yes, and
I'm fine for that.
focusing perhaps on studying rather than, all the hoops you have to jump through in
Right.
order to comport yourself properly in a perhaps uninviting,
It's
threatening
just
multicultural area.
Yeah, I mean, it's just exhausting. It's
Yeah.
mentally exhausting. It's emotionally
Yes.
exhausting. I don't have a family. I don't have children. If I did, I wouldn't live in the place that I'm living in. I'd have to constantly worry about it. If you're around people that you're comfortable with, I mean, I think it's not just the crime rate
Yeah.
and whether or not your car's going to get broken into. I mean, I think it's something deep in your psyche. And
Yeah.
I think you really can't get to a certain level of performance and focus
Yep.
if you're deeply sort of if your psyche isn't right.
Yes,
Um,
I agree.
and, yeah, and being in a diverse area messes with a lot of people's
One,
psyches.
yeah, one thing I can add to this is that I've traveled quite a bit in my adult life in the past 10 years, or like yeah, 6, 8 years, and I've learned that if I am totally unfettered, I don't have any obligations, any work, I can totally devote my mind to addressing the people I come across as individuals. But if
Yes.
I am absorbed in some sort of narrow discipline, if I'm busy focusing on something, I don't have the thought time necessary to suppress my natural cognitive faculty of inductive logic and seeing people as
Yeah.
groups. So it's a big drain on mental resources to
Yeah.
stifle that tendency to categorize.
That's exactly right. I think that's exactly right. And it's why, again, you have to have places where people are safe spaces, so to speak. I mean,
Yes, well
I guess in
said.
a sense,
Yeah.
that's kind of true, but really not safe spaces from ideas, but safe spaces from this feeling of, oh gosh, how do I deal with this person that's different than me? Uh,
Stability and consistency and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so no, I mean, I would say I'm very close to Jared Taylor, and I understand there are exceptions. There are
Yeah.
Jewish people like myself that can live around, the whitest white
Yeah.
Anglo-Saxon Protestants and appreciate them. I can live around black people.
Yeah.
There are black people that can live around me, but that's just not really the majority of people. And understanding that and understanding what that means and how to respond to that, I think, is what makes, is one of the many things that makes me different, certainly than a neocon.
Yeah.
Um, but again, in terms of the distinction between paleocon and then right winger, I mean,
There's
they're subtle.
overlap.
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the distinction is aesthetic. It's
Sensibilities.
yeah, it's in sensibilities. I mean, I listen to the Ramones. I mean, I don't think Pat Buchanan listens to the Ramones. I mean, it's
Right.
it's sort of things like that.
Mhm.
Um, and we're sort of we'll be the paleocons. 20 years from now, I'll be the paleocon.
Yes.
I kind of see us as the new emergence of a sort of a true conservative movement.
Mhm. All right, so I have a question for you.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna keep pursuing the Jewish line because
yeah, sure.
it's very relevant. I feel because the alt-right tent has gotten really big, and many formerly straight up neo-Nazis are sort of flooding into a movement which was originally you know agnostic on the JQ, right?
Yeah,
The
right. There
Jewish
wasn't much on.
question. Um, So how do you get flooded with like spammers from the right stuff and Daily Stormer?
I really don't. They all came for the very first article that I put up that really got a lot of buzz was
What
called
did you
"I'm a
put it
Jew."
on?
What's that?
What did you publish it on?
It was on the Jewish Daily Forward. I'll link you to it, but it was,
Yeah, do link me
I'm a
to it.
Jew and I'm a member of the alt-right. And keep in mind that wasn't my original title.
It's a
My
juicy.
title.
They'll like it. They like it like
But
that.
yeah, right. My title was something like "I'm a Jew among the alt-right," or so. Or it was something. I think it was on the inside looking out, a Jew among the alt-right. I think that was my. And then, of course, as a writer, this is something that a lot of people don't realize. That as a
Yeah.
writer, you often don't get to choose what title they put.
Yep.
And so they put "I'm a Jew and I'm a member of the alt-right." And I was like, "That's awesome. That's really going to be a good troll." And indeed, it was.
You gotta sell yourself.
And so, yeah, no, and I don't, I mean, great. I even bantered with them right there in the comment section.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I got a few people, oh, you're not you, we don't accept Jews. But honestly, the majority of people, if in terms of, for everybody from Twitter, on Facebook,
Yeah.
YouTube, if you put everything together, the majority was very positive about it.
Yes.
And I actually got a lot of, I've not really been a fan of Jewish people, but I love what you had to say, and I agree with you. I mean, I got a lot of that. So really, I'm not getting, and now, I mean, they've basically gotten rid of a lot of the alt-right people on Twitter. So, I really have a very positive experience from
Cool.
the alt-right at this point. I mean,
That's
I know who the people are that don't accept me. I just basically avoid them. They avoid me, and we just kind of go our separate ways.
Yeah.
I would probably call myself more alt-light, sort of a Mike Cernovich, kind of thing, Stefan Milieu, guys like, I mean, Blair White is someone I follow, I mean, so I mean,
Who's
I'm not.
Blair White?
What's that?
Who is Blair White?
Oh, that's the based tranny,
I've heard of Blair White.
yeah. She or he or whatever is interesting. But the point is, I mean, I've got I'm part of that big alt-right tent.
Yes.
And I'm fairly well accepted in it. And yeah, there are people that don't want any Jews around. I know who they are. They know who I am. And we just kind of we work our sides of the street.
Yes, gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah.
So
But no,
maybe-
it's really positive. I mean, I get a lot of interest just because I'm a right-wing Jewish person.
Yes, it makes you somewhat unique. Well, not that unique. I mean, in terms of old school alt-right, which was basically the locus of any beliefs based on race realism.
Yeah.
According to this, like maybe 3 years ago, before alt-right became a big sensation, it
Right.
was, I went to one American Renaissance conference, and there was maybe 5% Jewish people there,
I believe
which
it.
is
Absolutely.
overrepresentative.
Oh yeah, I absolutely believe it. And there was there's guys like the unqualified reservations. I mean, I think Moldbug is half Jewish. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the original people were certainly Jewy-ish.
Jewish, yeah.
And it's just there's always going to be a certain group of people that are anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
They 10 years ago they were all supporting Ron Paul and they would all call themselves libertarians. Now
Yeah.
they're all calling themselves alt-right. I just don't care. And the notion that I'm gonna let the fact that some people who are anti-Semitic call themselves alt-right, I'm gonna let that push me away from ideas that I know are true, which I know is what a lot of Jewish people are doing. They're saying, oh well, because someone that I'm gonna call a Nazi is over here, I'm gonna go to the opposite side of the room, even though I know I'm not really.
Yeah, to be fair, I feel that, in defense of alt-right anti-Semitism,
Yeah.
I describe it often as the tinfoil hat variety, whereby many of them have had very few and far in between experiences with Jewish people.
Yeah.
And so they're like the other, which
Yeah.
they simply, they don't really know much about. So I feel that, it's
I
not
don't have.
as
I mean,
insidious as like left wing, Jews did 9/11 anti-Semitism.
Yeah,
That
oh,
to
yeah.
me is much more sinister.
Oh, absolutely. No, there's no doubt that the alt-right as a group and alt-right anti-Semites are not at all the threat that the left is to Jewish people. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt. I mean, the
agree.
left has
I
real
agree.
institutional power.
Yeah.
They have power at university. They have power in governments. They just have more numbers on the street.
Yeah.
And they see Jews as white. I mean, some of them there's two ways they come at you. They either see Jews as white and they hate white people,
Yeah.
and so you're up the creek, or they see Jews as sort of super white or extra white.
This is a
sort
common
of as
trope in black nationalism.
absolutely it is.
Yeah.
And that's something that's leaking its way out into sort of, the Palestinian pro-black. I mean,
Yep.
that's all kind of
Yep.
amalgamating
Yeah.
into one kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they see Jews as kind of like the uber whites, the whites that are leading the other whites. And so
Yes.
either way you slice it, it's not good for us. And then you
Yes.
have the left-wing refusal to criticize anyone that's of a darker shade of skin. And of course,
Yep.
that means that, no black or Arab person is ever criticized for their open anti-Semitism.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
It's a much more, everyone criticizes a white person that talks
Yep.
about Jews.
Yep.
I don't have to say anything about that.
Yep.
I know that everyone else out there is going to say something about that, so I don't have to, but nobody says anything about black anti-Semitism.
Yep. Well
Nobody
said.
says anything about, a university. Where Jewish people are, and keep in mind, this is an environment where if you say, I don't think that a transvestite is really a woman, it's a man, you'll be crucified, whereas you can say, I want to kill Zionists, and that's okay. It's a pretty double standard, unfair situation. It's
Like
entirely,
transracialism, right? Like,
oh, yeah.
if a man becomes a woman, it's a woman, but if a white person, for whatever reason, becomes a black person, they're
Right.
very heavily scrutinized.
Right. Oh, the double standards are so thick, you don't know where to begin.
It's not going to
Um,
last forever.
Right. But no, the left is clearly the threat. And the thing is, and here's another thing I'll say, and this is something that a lot of Jews don't like to hear, but it's the truth. A lot of the right-wing anti-Semites, now they're wrong when they attack every single Jewish person. We're not a homogenous group, obviously, but they
Well said.
say some
Yeah.
things that have truth to them. When they point out,
Yeah.
the Jewish elite,
Yeah.
not obviously, again, the Jewish elite, that's
not
not
monolithic.
even a homogenous group,
Yeah.
but certain members are openly bigoted, racist, whatever word you want to call it, against white non-Jewish
Yep.
people. They come
Yep.
right out and say it.
I
I
agree.
can turn on CNN and I can see Sally Cohn saying openly racist things, openly
Yep.
hateful things about whites and
And
Christians.
it's terrible because these people are the fucking cause of anti-Semitism.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a tough thing. And, it's tough to respond
like
to
the
it
woman in
because
Sweden. What's her name? The one with Paidia?
what's
The
that?
famous,
Oh,
the Jewish woman in Sweden who is basically,
oh, yeah.
you know what I'm talking-
What's her name?
I forget.
Specter, Barbara Specter.
Yeah.
Barbara Lerner Specter.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
and that's the thing. It's hard to when an anti-Semite, when someone points out someone like that, hey, you know what? That's true. That's a Jewish person that is definitely been very damaging to white people. And so, I'm honest about it. I'll come out and say, yeah, these people are real, but they're not. They're not all
Not
of us.
everybody.
Those of us
Exactly.
that are aware to it, and we're doing our best to fight back. What I try to say to them is, look, if you have a problem with somebody because they're racist against white people, come out and say it. Be honest about it, but don't slander an entire group. You don't have to.
Yeah.
It's much more effective if you target the specific individual that's
Yes.
saying something racist.
And
You can even point out them being Jewish. Say, hey, look, you're Jewish and you're saying this. You wouldn't like it if I said something anti-Semitic, so why are you doing that?
Yeah.
That's an effective argument. Saying all Jews hate white people is not an effective argument. It's not true.
And dude, like this is like a common. I don't want to call it's a cognitive limitation, which is the foundation of racial discrimination, but it's a universal thing.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
people have difficulty differentiating individuals from groups. It's a universal problem.
Absolutely.
Due to the finiteness of the human intellect.
Yeah.
So and just to build on this, to exonerate the Jewish people. I don't even know where to begin. But for example, I was volunteering on the island of Lesbos in Greece recently.
Wow.
And of all the people I met this one cadre of Israeli journalists who came, and for them, they were utterly abhorrent of witnessing this massive, influx of random migrants into Europe. They were the only ones. They were the only ones who were saying anything.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. No, I mean, and that's the one thing I try to point out to some of the alt-right, anti-Semites is, man, look at some of these Israelis. Like, I know you don't like diaspora Jews, but Israel is awesome. They've totally there are a lot of completely woke people there, and
They're against the European migrant crisis.
completely against it.
They think
It's
it's
not, and
insane.
that's the thing. It's like, don't confuse liberal diaspora Jews for right-wing Israelis. It's a different species of
Totally different.
people entirely.
Yeah, it's insane.
Um, But no, you make a good point when you talk about that everyone does the categorization thing. And here's the thing: I
Right.
think there's a lot of people out there that even that will admit, yes, there are distinctions, but
Mhm.
simply because it's too much trouble to sit there and figure out who is who, and they realize that society's never going to do that, they still
Yep.
say, look, we still need to be kind of have some kind of a part in this.
Wait,
And I think to
say
some
again. We
extent
have to
that's
have some kind of,
some kind of apartness, some kind of
or
separation.
the option of it at
Yeah,
least.
the option of it.
Right.
That's why, again, I'm kind of in Taylor's camp, because
Yeah.
that's essentially his argument is what he wants is freedom of association.
Well, I have a question. Maybe you can tell me about this. But
Yeah,
my part of my big shtick is that I feel that maybe not yet, but I feel eventually geographical borders will become somewhat obsolete. So for me,
yeah,
I feel that in the same token, I feel that some white ethno-state in what is currently the United States is a totally treasonous, unethical, unpragmatic idea, which would basically entail civil war. What
yeah.
would
It'd
you
be like
say
The
about
Walking
this?
Dead. I mean, I think a lot of people aren't thinking that through in terms of what it would mean.
It's insane. I feel that the right to free association and free disassociation is all we should really be trying to agitate for.
Yeah, I think you're right to an extent. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, it's I will always support, in theory, white ethno states in Europe.
Yes.
Um,
Well said.
because that's the white homeland, just like Israel
The
is the
status
Jewish.
quo.
But if you're talking about United States, and I know a lot of them, this is where a lot of the alt-right kind of jumped off board with me, at least the anti-Semite ones, because they wanted me to keep going, oh yeah, I'll help you guys kick all the Jews out of my own country. Well, no,
Yeah,
I'm not going
yeah.
to do that. And that was kind of our breaking point. But yeah, I mean, look, United States of America was founded on a constitution, not on a tribal affiliation.
It was founded on
Um,
ideals. Yeah.
and I know it was founded by white people. I love the white people that founded America.
Yeah,
I have
yeah, yeah.
tremendous respect for them.
Uh,
I will always uphold the values that I think that they upheld. I will support white people,
yeah.
but America does not have to be 100% white.
That's insane. Yeah.
They forcibly brought black people over here. They allowed these other groups.
Yeah.
You can't. It's not fair to say that okay, come on over, buy into our system, build something up, and now we're kicking you out.
Yeah,
Uh,
you can't do that.
it's just not right. I mean, I think in Europe
It's a violation of human rights, which has become part of our intellectual political inheritance, which we can't
yeah. Yeah, I mean,
backslide
again,
on.
I mean, I mean, is it something that could potentially happen at some point? Well, sure it is, and
I
and
hope
is it
not,
something where
but
I understand why white people would want it? Absolutely, I do. I completely understand it,
yeah,
but it's just not something I support. I'll say it that way.
yeah,
Uh,
I agree.
you
If it
know,
were to happen, God forbid,
yeah,
for me it would be not a huge surprise because
yeah,
they're reacting against decades of
yeah. I would completely
injustice.
understand it. I mean, I mean, honestly, if I was non-Jewish white at this
Yeah,
point, with the role that I have and kind of my ability to kind of go where I want, I might be
mm.
moving off to, Western or Eastern Washington or something, and
Fucking
Washington
Idaho.
State, and yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
really, I mean, and working on building. Okay, we're going to get all white people here and work on actually building a white society right here
yeah,
now, and not waiting around.
yeah,
I can absolutely see myself doing that. So I'm
mm,
sympathetic.
yeah.
I just think people really aren't thinking it through, and I think they're not being
Yes,
fair to
it's
the
emotive. It's
minorities
emotive
that
reaction.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, but they're not being fair to the minorities that absolutely support this country and support white people.
Yeah, yeah. Who are willing to? Because I mean, for me, my central grievance is against what I term anti-racism, which I define
Yeah,
as the sum of all institutional and cultural structures predicated on the ossified dogma that human evolution stopped when human history began.
yeah,
So for
yeah,
me, I don't really. All I want is political equality and equal protection and
yeah.
equal rights, basically, for white
Right,
people.
right, right.
So yeah, for me, I don't really need an ethno state.
Right. No, and I think that if you're talking about government policy, I'm right. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
To me, the change really I want to see it more in academia and in our culture.
Yes,
In
yes,
that
yes.
Yeah, in that, whiteness and white people are no longer slandered.
Yeah,
We go back to the Western, the foundations. I mean, you see
scapegoated.
that thing at Penn State. I mean, to me, this encapsulates everything.
What happened at
They
Penn
rip
State?
Penn State. Okay, so they ripped down a picture of this is the English department, right? Rips down a picture of Shakespeare that hung, and puts up a picture of some black feminist that I've never even heard of. That probably works, probably,
No, this was done by the administration or by.
done by a group of students, and then the administration's, it gave you exactly this response you would expect. Oh, well, we really respect the
Yeah,
students. Good for them for supporting inclusion, and to me that just really kind of says it all.
yeah,
And what
yeah,
I want is for the adults to step back up and say, look, if you have a problem with Shakespeare, quite frankly, you should be out of our department and maybe out of the country. Go live
yeah,
somewhere where Shakespeare isn't the ground, the foundation of the literature.
yeah. Well
It's that
said. Yeah,
Shakespeare is the foundation one of the foundations of English literature. We speak
yeah,
English in America. We were founded by people from England, and so Shakespeare is a part of America. Period.
yeah,
End of story.
yeah.
If you don't like it, you leave. That's kind of where I am.
Yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment. Just to sort of plug an idea in my head. So
Yeah.
like you were just saying, for me, I don't care. I don't give a fuck at all about politics. Trump getting elected is relevant. I can't deny that, but it's not of core relevance. For me, culture precedes and presides over politics. And
Okay.
like
Yeah.
what you were
I
just
can see that.
saying, academia is, the root of culture in many ways. So one
Right.
thing I sort of am exploring right now is the idea of making an activist website called legitimategrievances.org, sort of modeled after, like Identity Europa or something,
Yeah.
or
Sure.
maybe like that, but much more moderate, only sort of pushing for grievances which are legitimate within the tradition of liberal humanism and
Yeah.
democratic egalitarian values,
Yeah.
and have it aimed directly at academia.
Yeah. See,
To try
here's the
to
great thing
try to
about.
coerce, to try to inspire, say, hard science professors to speak
Yeah.
up
Right.
and basically start speaking aloud and denying the legitimacy of all the soft science, like non-science
Right. Yeah.
professors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry,
absolutely.
continue.
That's the thing. The academia has moved so hard to the left that they're weak now to a liberal critique.
Yeah,
They're wide open to a liberal critique. It
and
doesn't
they
have to be
deny
right wing.
reality. Like,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a right-wing critique. I mean, you
yeah,
can come at them with the scientific method. I
yes,
mean, these are people
yes,
that deny facts.
yeah,
These are people that deny, objective perception. So I mean, they're open to a whole lot of critiques and attacks. And
yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, we definitely have to get going on that.
And it's
I
it's a
mean,
basically it's become an open secret that the dogma, which is the foundation of what I guess we're calling leftism,
yeah,
it's an open secret that that's pseudoscience at this point. It's
yeah,
it depends on ad hoc hypotheses about
yeah, ad hoc,
white
exactly.
racism causing all the problems in our society.
Right. It's all ad hoc, exactly.
Yeah,
It's all a reaction to what they think, whiteness is doing, or what they think the
it's
white folks are
insane.
up.
Scapegoating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, it reminds me a bit of anti-Semitism in
yeah,
some way.
man.
It takes on a lot of the structure of anti-Semitism.
Yeah,
If you look at their arguments, oh, all white people are guilty because, of these particular white people that are in power. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes it's exactly the same argument. Oh, well,
yeah.
all whites have privilege. Well, no, a person in Appalachia, you can tell me about, a Wall Street guy who's rich, but that has nothing to do
Or
with a
even
person in Appalachia
yes,
that's
or
poor.
even
There's no
even
connection between the two just because
even
they
more,
both have
right?
white skin.
Yeah, I guess the idea with like the whole white privilege thing is that if people perceive you as white, they'll have all these associations in their head. So even if you're dirt poor and retarded,
Yeah.
even if you are poor, you will be perceived as white. But the thing with this is back to what we're talking about. It's a very persistent, perhaps inseparable tendency for us to categorize based on associations, and people, universally, black people included, all have associations based on skin color, and that's
Yes.
unless we want to all start wearing bags over our heads, which I might be on board for. Unless we do that, this white privilege is not going to go away.
Right, and here's the thing about privilege. I mean, to me, it's not really a privilege. If, for example, you say something like, well, people are looking closer to black people when they walk into a store. Well, let's take a look at the crime rate. Because if that crime rate is higher
Yeah,
for black people than it is for white people, then as far as I'm concerned, that's not a privilege. That's just reality.
it's
And
what
keep in
people.
mind, if when people oftentimes will compare, oh well, in these situations it's better to be white. Well, okay, what about a rural county that's 99% white and very poor,
Yeah,
which, for example, Hazard County, Kentucky.
yeah.
Um, it doesn't
I've been
matter.
there. It's a crazy, crazy town.
Yeah,
Hazard,
it doesn't.
Kentucky. I remember that place. Yeah,
It doesn't matter whether or not that white people are looked at better if everyone's white. So,
yeah,
there's so many situations. To me, white privilege is only, even if it does exist, it's only situational.
yeah.
Whereas the real privilege is money. I mean, in America, the privilege is economic,
Well,
and
I think,
that's all the
yeah,
time.
and also, I mean, for me, also another part of my shtick is that racial discrimination is quite literally, I feel, a subset of lookism. Like if you're beautiful, the world is handed to you on a platter.
Yeah,
People dump money on your lap.
yeah,
You know, even even not if you're a model. Like I got crooked teeth. It's like people size you up based on these things, and
yeah.
they will think, okay, this guy is lower socioeconomically, therefore, if I am going to hire him at all, I will pay him less. And this is like a universal thing. So it's like on this hand, I'm sympathetic to black people, for example, but I feel that there should be no privileged category of discrimination. We should not try to eradicate one type of discrimination to the exclusion of the broader faculty of discrimination.
Yeah. No, we just approach it so clumsily, and now the left approaches it with just like aggressive clumsiness. It just
It's
muddies the water.
anti-white, plain and simple.
Yeah, it muddies the waters and makes it impossible to deal with this issue with any reason and
Yeah.
rationality. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we're heading toward a very good conclusion to the racial issue in America.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, I have to say, look, I stand with whiteness. Whiteness is what built a functioning society.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we have to have a freaking, some kind of a square off, then that's the side I'm on.
God forbid. I feel that we should
And
not
God forbid, indeed.
we should not expect it, and we should not hope it, and we should try to avoid it.
Absolutely. No, the
Um,
left, I mean, I think that if you look at the right versus left is absolutely pushing the race war much harder, and they have
yeah,
much more institutional authority to do it.
yeah. Well said. Well said. So what do you? Okay. So what do you think of in the news? I'm not a paranoid libertarian. For me, I don't want to expect a war, etc. I don't
Yeah.
want to expect conflict because to expect it is to sort of elicit it. I feel.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
what do you think of like recent like the headlines about election rigging and stuff? For me, it
I don't
seems
think,
very
I
like
don't
going
think
in a bad direction.
I don't. Yeah. Well, what the problem behind? I don't really care about the whole Russian hacking or election.
Yeah,
Yeah, that doesn't matter at all to me. But what does matter is the way that liberals are again walling themselves off into their own little world, weaponizing it,
yeah,
and really getting aggressive about it. I mean,
yeah.
they're really. I mean, Keith Olbermann and other people, and I mean,
Who's
just
Keith
from
Overman?
Oh, he's an ex sportscaster and political commentator. He's on GQ. GQ has their own little channel now, and he's just raving about Russian hacking and Trump is a Russian spy, and
Yeah,
we're under control by Russia. And if they keep pushing and pushing and pushing this, and this really takes root as a
yeah,
thing among liberals, I mean that's terrible, and it really makes it impossible. They won't be able to work with Trump. They will. They're not going to be able to move forward. And that's really what concerns me. Again, it's not
yeah.
any of the specifics about Russian hack. I'm sure when people always do that kind of crap. I could
It's
care
a
less.
loss of
Um,
confidence.
but the way that liberals are walling themselves off and weaponizing it and really turning conservatives into the other
Mm,
even more than they used to. That's what scares me. How
mm.
are we going to move forward as a country with half the country saying that Trump is a Russian agent or something?
It's
It's just nonsense.
extremely
It's just
problematic.
absolute nonsense. So that's really what concerns me.
Yeah, it's very very crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
it's crazy. It's crazy.
yeah,
And I have no doubt that Putin preferred Trump. I mean, I would
of
have too if
course.
I'm him.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a no-brainer between Clinton and Trump. I mean, and that's it's not a bad thing. And the fact that that's another layer of this is that liberals have kind of been talked into seeing that anything that Putin supports is sort of a prima facie bad thing, necessarily a bad thing, and that's not true. I mean, Putin's not the best. I mean, I don't worship him the way some on the right do. I mean, he has his problems. But at the same time, it makes perfect sense that he would be against the interventionist Clintons and all the things that they've done around the world with the Clinton Foundation, which have been a challenge to Russia. It just makes sense. And just the same way as it makes sense that, Saudi Arabia would have an opinion and United Kingdom would. We all know that most of the European Union was against Trump. So why isn't, so if Clinton was elected, guys say, oh yeah, the European Union elected Clinton. I mean, come on.
Interesting. It's very
well, I tell you what, my dinner is cooking away here. If you've got a couple more, I'd like to talk maybe 5-10 more minutes if you got a couple more topics. Otherwise,
I don't know really. You can go eat your dinner. It's probably
okay.
I've learned it's good in my YouTube, in my burgeoning YouTube career. I've learned that the art is to be as short as possible. So
yeah, absolutely. No, I could go on. I could blab on all night. Believe me. And the thing is, I realize that no one likes to hear myself talk as much as I do. So
oh man, I feel you there. Yeah, dude. Well, good talking though.
I
enjoyed this.
Absolutely, me too, and I'd be happy to do this anytime again. So
cool.
I am about to start with a few other guys, a sort of right-wing Jewish amalgamated site of all of us together. We're going to have a podcast.
Really?
Happy to have all kinds of contributors.
Who have you spoken to about this?
Some of the other guys on Twitter. I mean, when we get it together, I mean, we'll come out.
Have you talked to Alex Goldstein?
Alex Goldstein? I don't think so.
Or who's the guy that talks to Kevin McDonald a lot?
Reactionary Jew.
I met him at NPI.
I
would like to help if you want.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, we're not. I mean, we're just getting it started. But certainly, once it's up, I mean, we'll be asking for contributors, and we're happy to talk to people. So we'll definitely be talking about that.
And you should talk to. You spoken with Reactionary Jew?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think Alex Goldstein wanted to do a similar thing. So I'll put him in touch with you if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But no, we've got a number of people. We're getting it together, and it's we're really. I mean, we've all been kind of doing our own thing, and the idea is we ought to get this all together and have just one site with a lot of content so that people can go there and really kind of see a lot. So
cool, rock and roll.
But that'll be getting started here pretty soon. I think Reactionary is actually going on Red Ice, so we're getting back out there.
Yeah, keep me updated.
We'll do. We'll absolutely do.
Okay, good talking. Have a good night.
You too.
See you.